The afternoon sun beat down on the dusty military checkpoint as Sergeant Marcus Webb leaned against the hood of his jeep, sweat trickling down his temple. 23 years of service had taught him to recognize every rank insignia from 100 yards away, but the woman approaching on foot wore civilian clothes, faded jeans, a plain white t-shirt, and sunglasses that hid half her face. No military bearing that he could detect, no entourage, nothing that would make her stand out in the small border town except perhaps the quiet confidence in her stride. Marcus exchanged a glance with Private Chun, who was manning the checkpoint with him. They'd been stationed here for 6 months, processing endless streams of military personnel, contractors, and civilians moving through this forgotten corner of the desert. The monotony had a way of making you careless, but it also made you hungry for any break in routine. The woman was maybe 50 yards away now, and Marcus found himself straightening up, adjusting his cap more out of habit than necessity. When she reached the barrier, she simply stood there, waiting, no impatience, no annoyance at the wait. Just stillness. It was Chun who spoke first, asking for identification, but Marcus couldn't help himself. The heat, the boredom, the sameness of every day out here, it all combined into a moment of misplaced humor. He stepped forward with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes and said, "Ma'am, you look a little lost. This is a military installation." "What rank are you supposed to be?" The words came out more mockingly than he'd intended, tinged with the kind of casual disrespect that long service sometimes breeds toward civilians who wander too close to military business. She removed her sunglasses slowly, revealing eyes that seemed to hold entire battles within them. "4-star general," she said simply, her voice carrying no anger, no indignation. Just fact. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice water. 4 stars. There were only a handful of 4-star generals in the entire military, and he'd just spoken to one like she was some tourist who'd taken a wrong turn. His mind raced through every protocol he'd ever learned, every regulation about proper address and military courtesy. Behind him, he heard Chun's sharp intake of breath. The private had clearly recognized what Marcus was only now processing. This had to be General Rebecca Strauss, the only female 4-star general in the Army and one of the most decorated soldiers of her generation. "General, Marcus started, his voice cracking like a recruit's. His hands moved to salute, trembling despite his decades of experience. The casual arrogance of moments before had evaporated, replaced by pure distilled fear, court-martial, dishonorable discharge, the end of everything he'd worked for. All of it flashed through his mind in the space between heartbeats. She raised a hand, stopping his salute. "At ease, Sergeant." She stepped closer, and Marcus could see now what he'd missed before the small scars on her hands. The way she moved with the economy of motion that came from years of combat training, the weight of responsibility that seemed to emanate from her very presence. "Tell me, Sergeant Webb," his name tag. Of course, she read his name tag. "What do you see when you look at me?" The question wasn't rhetorical. She genuinely wanted an answer. Marcus swallowed hard. "I see someone I underestimated, ma'am. I see my own failure." Something shifted in her expression. Not quite a smile, but a softening. "I've been underestimated my entire career, Sergeant. First woman in my class at West Point. First woman to command a battalion in combat. First woman to earn my 4th star. Do you know what I learned from all of it?" She paused, letting the question hang in the desert air. "That the people who underestimate you are giving you a gift. They're showing you exactly who needs to learn something new." She pulled out her military ID, handed it to Chun for processing, and turned back to Marcus. 23 years of service, 3 tours, 2 Bronze Stars. Your record shows a man who earned his rank through dedication and courage. But courage without humility is just arrogance. Today, you learned something. The question is what you'll do with that lesson. Marcus felt something crack open inside him, not shame, though there was plenty of that, but something deeper, recognition. How many times had he made assumptions? How many soldiers under his command had he judged too quickly, seen only surfaces instead of substance? The general wasn't just teaching him to recognize rank. She was teaching him to recognize his own blindness. "I'll do better, ma'am," he said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. She nodded, collected her ID from Chun, and prepared to move on. But before she walked through the checkpoint, she turned back one last time. "Sergeant, I came through this checkpoint specifically. I wanted to see who was holding the line out here in the middle of nowhere. Now I know. Don't waste this moment." As her vehicle arrived to collect her, Marcus stood at perfect attention, saluting properly this time. Not out of fear, but out of genuine respect for her service, for her patience, and for the grace she'd shown in turning his mistake into a lesson rather than a punishment. Long after she'd gone, he remained at his post, forever changed by the woman he'd almost missed completely.